Okay, well, I certainly didn't expect to be talking about Zelda 2 this quickly, but here I am. So as a follow-up to last week's video where I did sort of this like mini review of The Legend of Zelda, I'm going to do the same thing again today for Zelda 2. And I know this game's kind of been a hot issue over the years because of how different it is from the other Zelda games. So we will discuss all about that in this video. So to piggyback off the discussion we started last week, today we're going to be talking about Zelda 2: The Adventures of Link. Zelda 2 is definitely one of the more controversial games in the series. Probably not so much back in the day. I can't speak for it then because I wasn't born yet. But as time has gone on, this game has become more and more controversial. I mean, seriously, just look at it. This is so different from the first game and so different from everything that came after it. It's totally understandable for people to come into this game and being surprised and or disappointed because it's so different from everything else that this series has come to be known for. The story is pretty much as bare bones as the Zelda 1 story was. Again, I don't have a manual to check if there's anything extra in there of the story, but all of the story that you need is in the blurb here on the title screen. After Ganon was destroyed, Impa told Link a sleeping spell was cast on Princess Zelda. She will wake only with the power of the number 3 Triforce sealed in a palace in Hyrule. To break the seal, crystals must be placed in statues in 6 well-guarded palaces. Link set out on his most adventuresome quest yet. And again, to really understand what you're supposed to be doing in this game, that's really all the story you need to know. Going around a world looking for 6 palaces to place 6 crystals so you can go find the Triforce in the last palace. And once again, the game kind of just drops you in the world and says go. This is definitely the most RPG Zelda because you have a level system, you have an overworld where you encounter enemies and then go into a combat section. Unlike Zelda 1 where you're almost entirely alone to explore the world and figure it out, in this one there's actually towns and people you can talk to get information to help you find your way. And that is both good and bad because yes, it's good that there is this method of making the world feel a bit more alive. There's people that you can interact with. There are all these town people who are living their own lives, doing their own things while you're off doing something else. That was a very neat concept back in the 80s when this game came out. And this by far wasn't the first game to have RPG elements, but it was the first time for Zelda. Considering the popularity of Dragon Quest in Japan back in the time, it's no surprising that the Zelda team would try something in a similar-ish vein, especially since the series hadn't really figured out its direction yet, having only had one game come out before it. Zelda 2 added a lot of RPG elements, most specifically its leveling system, and it was something that was introduced in Zelda 2 and has not been seen since Zelda 2. And that's something that I actually really appreciate about Zelda 2 because you can feel like you're growing stronger as a character. It's one thing in later games, whenever you get a better weapon, now you're stronger because your weapon's better. It kind of emulates that, but in Zelda 2, you don't get new weapons, you just get stronger. You gain a level in your attack so you can hit harder and you kill enemies faster. You gain a level in your health and it takes 4 hits to kill you instead of 3 hits to kill you now. You gain a level in magic and you can cast another spell before your bar is depleted. This is so far the only time where you can feel this type of growth in a Zelda game without just visiting a fairy and having more magic available to you or getting double defense, basically doubling your life meter. It's small incremental progression that makes you feel like you're growing as a character, and that's something that I do kind of wish Zelda would do again. It's always something I've liked about this game. I do have to discuss just how drastically different this game is from the game that came before it and everything that's come after it. Every Zelda game, you're either in a top-down 2D perspective, exploring a world, having full range of a world to explore, or it's a full 3D environment that you can move around in freely and explore to your heart's content. Zelda 2 is a bit different. It's definitely a lot more action focused. The game is in this top-down view whenever you're in the world, and you can go find caves and towns and fight monsters and find dungeons. But once you find one of those things, it switches to a 2D side-scrolling perspective, basically mixing Zelda with Mario almost, because you've got the side-scrolling jumping just with a sword. And it's very much a shock to come back and play this, especially if you're used to any other games in the series and you're expecting something like that. And I feel like that's where this game gets a lot of its hate over the years, is because it's just so drastically different. It's people going back to it and being surprised at just how different it is from the rest of the series. I'm not going to sit here and say it doesn't have its issues. It definitely does. The combat can definitely feel a little clunky until about a third of the way into the game, whenever you start getting new sword techniques, which make not just combat, but actually just traversing the 2D sections a lot easier. In the fourth town you go to, right before the third dungeon, you can enter a church, or at least what appears to be a church, and there's a warrior in there who will teach you a downward stab. So you jump in the air and you point your sword downward and you can stab something below you. That makes moving through the 2D segments so much easier, because if there's an enemy in your way and you're kind of struggling to kill it, you can just hop over it, down stab, and you'll just like bunny hop over it and you can just run away. So if you're not grinding for the experience points, sometimes that's just the best way to manage something, because you can just hop over it without wasting magic on a jump spell and run away. Oh, that's something else this game does, is it actually incorporates spells into it. Again, feeling a bit like a more traditional RPG. You don't get items in this game in the same sense you got them in the first Zelda. You do get some items that give you like passive effects or things in the overworld, like the candle, which is you get in the first dungeon, lights up caves so you can see the enemies inside them. So there's not a lot of progression, puzzle solving help in combat that the items give you. All of the combat help is through the magic spells that you're given by the wizards in the towns. All these spells do different things. Hold on, I can pull it up and look at it. You have the shield spell. It makes it to where you can take more hits. You have the jump spell, which basically doubles your jump height, which is awesome. You have the life spell, which heals 3 segments of your health meter. You have the fairy spell, which actually turns Link into a fairy, and you can fly around the map to avoid something particularly annoying or to climb particularly high chasms that the jump spell is not enough to cover. The fire spell makes your sword shoot out fireballs whenever you swing it. This is used to kill literally one enemy in the game. The reflect spell is slightly better than the fire spell in that it's used to kill 2 enemies in the game. The spell is almost like sort of like a screen nuke, but instead of damaging enemies, it turns them all into the little blobs that you encounter at the early parts of the game, save for one area where it's needed to find a secret. And the thunder spell, which is also a screen nuke, but it damages and kills everything on the screen. So the spells are almost like the items in the other Zelda games, but they are explicitly combat focused. There's no using them to solve puzzles in this game. And speaking of puzzles, there aren't really any puzzles in this game. Again, this is a very action focused game. Navigating this game is a little bit weird, not because the world is hard to traverse or anything, but because the direction that the NPCs give you is at best a little cryptic and at worst absolutely useless. This is an early RPG, so it definitely expects you whenever you get to a new town to talk to everybody, because you might miss the one person who's actually going to be helpful to you. They'll all either say something useless, they'll just like hello, a couple of them will turn into monsters and try to hurt you. A couple of them will actually help you in either restoring your health or restoring your magic, and then a couple of them need something from you, and usually these who need something are how you access the wizards or the warriors in each town. In the second town, there's a woman who is missing her mirror or her statue, something like that, and you have to go out into the world to a cave nearby and get it back for her from the monsters who stole it. The other frustrating thing about getting information in this game is sometimes you have to talk to NPCs several times. None of the people who are walking around you have to, but there are a few creatures in the towns that you can interact with. They don't hurt you, but they are there and they're sleeping, and you have to talk to them like 5 or 6 times to annoy them enough to wake them up so they'll talk to you. And all of those actually are ones that give you hints as to what to do next. The dialogue can be a little cryptic at times, but at least from what I remember, You do get most all the information that you need in order to progress, as long as you can gain an understanding of what they're actually talking about. And so, like, having said all that out loud, I do understand why people are disappointed whenever they come back to this game to play it after having experienced something like Ocarina of Time or Skyward Sword or Breath of the Wild. There's a reason this is the black sheep of the series, because it is very different from everything that has come from this series since this. But that doesn't mean it's a bad game. It might not be the best Zelda game, but it is still a good game in its own right. And I don't think it gets enough credit for that, because a lot of people will play it and think it's bad because it's not like the other games. There are a few things in this game that I would call bullcrap. The instant death pits are kind of frustrating because they're always accompanied by enemies that if you're not careful, they will just push you into them. It's one thing to have an instant death because of a botched jump, that's my fault. It's another entire, especially when some of the areas where they have like bridges where there are fish that come out of the water and you have to jump along the bridge. That's annoying because I did time my jump well, and halfway into my jump, a fish comes out of the water and hits me and knocks me into the pit. And stuff like that is very frustrating, but that's also just a relic of NES era games because they're sometimes just a little cheap like that. The other thing that I would call bullcrap on in this is that you can miss the last spell. You can just not get it, but unfortunately it's required to finish the game. And the only way to know that you can get it is to speak to a very specific NPC in the last town you go to tell you to go back to another town that you've already been to, where there is an old man there who told you how to find the hidden town. So that's kind of annoying because you can get all the way to the final palace, you can get to the end of the final palace facing the boss of the final palace, and you can't do anything to him without that last spell. And that is a very frustrating aspect of a game like this. Had a lot more to say about this game than I thought I did. For anyone curious, I played this on my I'm Thor, and Emulation Station says I put about 6.4 hours into the game, but that would actually be fairly less because the first session that I played of this game, I completely lost my save. I made it through the second dungeon in one play session, and it glitched out and I had to close out of the game, and I hadn't saved at all at that point. So it says 6.4. Some of it is that situation and some of it is just recording a little bit of footage. So I would say I'm probably more at about the 4.5 hour mark for actually completing the game. And that's one of the reasons why this video is already coming out, is because this game's very short if you know what to do. If you don't have to talk to the NPCs and you can just beeline to the objectives on the map, it's a surprisingly short game. Like I said, about 4.5 hours or so to beat the whole thing. I guess final thoughts on Zelda 2. I really do enjoy this game. The combat in it is very fun once you start unlocking some of the other sword moves. Much like Zelda 1, don't be afraid to use a guide if you are unsure of wanting to play this game because of how cryptic you've heard it is. It is fun, but I could definitely see people getting frustrated and stuck if you don't know what's going on, because some of the clues are cryptic at best and some of them are outright useless. But I think I've said enough about this game. I've been recording for almost an hour at this point. I want to thank you guys so much for watching. Look forward to the next Zelda video where we're going to be discussing what a lot of people consider to be the best game in the series, The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. I have some interesting opinions on A Link to the Past right now, but I've only played through it once and that was a long time ago, so I'm sure those opinions will be a little bit more refined when I come out of it this time. But I think that's all I want to talk about here. If you liked the video, make sure to hit that like button, and if you like what I do here, then hit subscribe because that does help me out a lot. I want to thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Have a good one, y'all.